Hey, we're here. It's our live Q&A on a Thursday evening, 6 o'clock. Thanks for those that have showed up. We'll see how many people come on and have some questions. This morning, we looked at the listing numbers, and I said we would probably grow by 200 more listings coming on during the day, and we are at 187 more. So I was close. Not too bad, but you're getting just as good at that too, because we're looking at these numbers every day. And I wanted to read you a real quick thing from the Cromford report. It's going to be hard for you to see on your end, but it's kind of interesting. Well, let me make it bigger. At least you stand a chance. We're talking about sales, prices per square foot going up to the summer. In the luxury market, it tends to slow down in the summer because people don't like to go out in 100-degree heat. Investor traffic picks up because, they got to eat all year. So, they're out there trying to scrape up as many deals as they can. So the price increases may start to ebb ever so slightly in June. But it says here, and this is what you really need to pay attention to, because people are going to be shocked when these June numbers come out in a couple of weeks, the end of May here. Average sales price in square foot has risen over 9% in the past 2 months. Think of that. $400,000 house that was $400,000 2 months ago is now $436,000. That's brutal. Equivalent to an annual appreciation rate of over 55%. We should not be surprised in the summer months are far more dramatic than this spring. Here's the final comment here. At this point, I would like to remind everyone that CoreLogic predicted that the home prices across the USA would fall by 6.6% between June 2020 and June 2021, probably the most inaccurate forecast in their history. Personally, I don't take any 12-month home price forecast any more seriously than a 12-month weather forecast. But really, that was like predicting a deep snowdrift in July in Phoenix. That was never possible. So they're kind of poking fun at them, but again, they're not poking fun at them. That CoreLogic is in the forecasting game, and they forecast we'd be down 6%. I was just cruising around YouTube just a few minutes ago, and there's still crash people out there. There might be, guys. I really don't know, but the numbers that I see right now, we're about as far from a crash as we're going to get. So another thing that we saw was in the Arizona multiple listing service, they come out with a report every once in a while. And this one says supply versus demand absorption rate. And it's kind of complicated. But basically, he said, our new chart tells us our market has cooled over the last 30 days, now reporting 0.49 months and an absorption rate of 204%. In fireman terms, we've moved from a 13-alarm fire to a 10-alarm fire. So we're seeing some gradual improvements, but you're still going to be going up against, some competition. McElroy said, markets do not get hotter indefinitely. All changes tend to start small and then grow. The current market cooling is like that. Can't talk in the evening. We now have supply increasing and demand falling. This will gradually release some of the steam and the overheating engine, and the market can then trend back towards normality. The primary mechanism by which they cool down is through prices. In hot markets, prices go up, which causes demand to weaken, which means the supply gets a chance to recover. When prices go up, some buyers can no longer afford to buy, and they drop out, and we're seeing that. The faster the pricing goes up, the more buyers tend to drop out, at least in a healthy market. This is not happening, then you probably have a bubble where pure speculation has taken over and demand grows when prices rise, and we are not seeing this. Now they're just saying as prices are going up, we're starting to see people drop out. In a bubble, when prices go up, more people jump in, just like Bitcoin. Even though we've entered a cooling phase, it will probably take several quarters, if not years, to cool down to normal, and prices will continue to rise at a brisk pace for quite some time. Not encouraging news if you're a first-time home buyer. That's a tough situation to be in. So what's my opinion of if you were a first-time home buyer right now? I'd wait it out. And why do I say that? Well, you've been saving for a down payment. You've done a good job of saving for a down payment. And now you've got your down payment money, but you've got to put some of it aside so that you can pay for an appraisal gap so that you can win that bid. So at 20% down, which was going to mean you were going to borrow 80% of the value of that home, you're probably going to have to put a lower down payment down so you can hang on some of that money so that you can bid $450,000 on a $410,000 house, and you may have to kick in another $20,000 on an appraisal gap. I think we need to wait, if you're a first-time home buyer, for that kind of craziness to start to calm down. It may be a year. But in the meantime, you've done a good job in saving. Keep saving. You'll be in a better position. Will home prices be higher? Yes, but I think your out-of-pocket money will be less. Now, if you're moving here, if you're selling a house and buying a house, keep going. There's nothing stopping you because you're getting more than probably what you thought you were going to get in your house. And you've got more money to work for getting into a house, especially if you're coming from out of state. Our taxes are low and our weather's better. So, I certainly don't discourage that. And I want to say thanks to my YouTube subscribers this year that have allowed me to help them buy and sell a home and take advantage of the $800 buyer-seller closing credit that I've been giving. And it's been fun meeting people here. So will you advise to buy a rental this time or wait it out? This will be our 5th rental. I don't see anything slowing down the rental process. If the math is working for you, jump in. I mean, even if you look back in the crash, rent maybe went down a smidge, but I wouldn't back off. If you're in a position where you can pick up rentals, I'd do it. You may be in a position where you're going to be able to get some because some of the mom and pop rentals that got burned with this rent moratorium are saying, that's it, I'm out. It was fun playing the rental game. Let's sell this, take our capital gains, and let's move on. I don't want to put people in the house where nobody pays me. But if the cash flow is working for you, sure. I wouldn't slow down a bit. Any other questions out there for me? I won't sit here in dead silence and wait like a radio program, right? So there was, oh gosh, who was it? That actor, Alec Baldwin had decided he was going to start a radio show, and he's on the radio and he goes, okay, we're going to take callers. And then he goes, yeah, we're taking calls. Calls now. Nobody called. I've been in radio. I did a brief stint in radio in a small town. It's lock yourself in the closet and talk to yourself. That's what it's like if you want to be a DJ. Follow-up question. What's good cash flow? Well, if your rent payment is less than what you're paying for the mortgage, that's bad cash flow. So I have an investor in California that comes over and he scoops up rentals and it's paying for his retirement. So I think he has about 7 of them. So he's making at a minimum $500 more than his payment, his finance payment. In some cases, he paid cash for them. So he's got 100% cash flow. So making more than what your payment is. In other words, are you covering your expenses? Because you're paying the taxes. You're paying, you're not paying the utilities, but you're paying your overhead costs. So you want to make sure that you've got enough money that's covering that. Rent or buy now. Smarter to wait for 2022 for a market correction. It's hard to correct. I mean, it's hard to predict. You just saw me, if you're jumping on a little late, seeing where the Cromford market, looking at the numbers that we see now, is saying it could take several quarters or several years to get to normal. So it's possible, and I just don't want to predict 2 years out, but it's possible that what we're going to see that's going to be called a correction is just a return to normal, where the bidding wars end, real estate goes up 2 or 3%, and we stopped, the craziness. But there's nothing out there right now that's showing that's coming. Yesterday, the bond market kind of had a hissy fit, and it went down because of something that the Fed chairman said. And so rates and the cost of rates started to go up yesterday. And this morning they came right back down. So people that built in rate increases yesterday actually pulled them right back down. So it was just this weird little anomaly where news made the interest rates go up about, a little bit. And then in the morning, they come in, look at the numbers and go, oh, we can pull them back. And then they pulled them back. Forecasting rates out into 2022 is also hard to tell. But then again, if they do go up to 4%, that's still a historic low. My first mortgage was 11.75. Chew on that. And then one time I got a 9.75. Man, I thought I knew what I was doing, which was a good rate at the time. So I think I bought my first house in 1984. And I thought I had slightly overpaid for it at the time. But back then you did not have data. All you could do is talk to friends, neighbors, look at what was selling around the neighborhood. You could not look up the numbers like you can now. You can go to Realtor.com, Redfin, look at their analysis. We share a lot of the data here, so nobody's really walking in the dark like we used to back then. Does the Cromford report assume the economy will stay good for the foreseeable future? Would a slowdown potentially affect the housing market? Cromford, Michael Orr just looks at the math. He just looks at the numbers. So let's take today's numbers, for example. We have less than a 2-month supply. So that 2-month supply and the buyer activity that we have right now tell us that in the next 6 months, prices are going to increase. Now, if the economy starts going bad and unemployment starts spiking up, that's also not going to happen really fast in a 3 or 4 month or 6 month period. It happens over time, unless you get into something as catastrophic as 2008, which was the first time I've seen that in my lifetime. So if the economy cools down in 2022 and it doesn't continue the path that people are seeing it do now, it may slow the market down. But nothing changes until that inventory number goes up. So if we end up with high unemployment, first thing I want you to look at, is there a change in the inventory number? In other words, our number of 4,800 today, if it spikes up to 6,000 all of a sudden in a month, something's going on. If it goes up another 2,000 in a month, something's going on. It's easier to go back and look at inventories after they've gone up and then drill in and see why than it is to try and predict where they're headed. So Michael Orr does not go out a year, just like he said in that last statement where he said, let's see, I'll read it here real quick. I don't like to take any 12-month home price forecast any more seriously than a 12-month weather forecast. But he will tell you that it does not snow in July in Arizona. So I think, there's so many things that can affect the prices of homes, but it all boils down to only two things: how many homes are on the market and how many people want to buy them. You mentioned you helped a viewer sell. Thought you were only a buyer agent, as most of your comments seem to be aimed at buyers. Isn't this a great market for seller agents? Actually, it's really tough for seller agents. I do both. I, on this channel, try to encourage buyers and try to educate buyers as much as I can. But if you've been on a couple of times, you've heard me say, if you want to sell, I'd sell now. When it's good, it's good. I had a friend of mine call me from California, and he goes, I've got a new construction home being built in Peoria. And he goes, it's going to be 6 to 8 months. And he said, should I finance that now and then sell my townhome later in California? And I said, well, how's the market? And he said, well, it's really good. And he says, I could probably sell it in a day. I said, how's the market in July? And he goes, well, I don't know. And I said, well, then do what you know. If you know today is good and you're a seller and that fits into your budget and your plans, I said, sell, find a short-term rental, and then come over and move into your new home. Because there's nothing worse than saying, well, the market's really good right now, I'm going to wait. And then in July, it all falls apart. If you're a seller and you see what I just mentioned, listings all of a sudden go from 4,800 to 6,000, that's your sign to put it on the market right now, because people aren't going to notice that number or that increase in listings for a few months. It's going to take 60 days before that even hits the news. And even then, people probably won't even see it. Most people, when they're selling houses, they just look down the street and go, Oh, there's 2 more for sale signs on the street. What's going on? They don't pay a lot of attention to the data. They rely on a real estate agent to come in and go, okay, here's what's happening. That's great. But I think, um, yeah, I do like helping sellers. In fact, it's hard for real estate agents and sellers right now because simply nobody's listing their home. You still need great photography. You need 360 virtual tours on the house. You can't, I still say, don't wing it. Don't go cheap. You're getting a listing, it's $500,000. Don't go in and take the photos with your cell phone because you're still doing your client a disservice. Murillo market. I came here from New York thinking I would find Arizona was a lot cheaper in housing market. Well, that's because you weren't watching this channel. There are parts of Arizona where it's cheaper. What part of New York did you live in? I lived in Albany and I lived in Fairport, which is a suburb of Rochester. The house prices were cheaper, but man, the real estate taxes were through the roof. I'm curious to hear what you were seeing out there, because it's not all about the price of the home. Texas is the same way, folks. You go to Texas and the prices vary by city. They vary by county, and all of them have the same attributes. They're stinkingly high. I think a $300,000 house there has a tax rate of, quote me if I'm wrong, but around $7,000. My $164,000 house in upstate New York was $3,400 in taxes. And get this, in New York, when you sit at the closing table, you have to pay your taxes 1 year in advance. My sales manager warned me that. He goes, Rick, when you're buying your house, be prepared because they're going to hit you with your full year's taxes paid in advance at the closing table. Brooklyn, and then I lived in New Jersey. I'm 31. I was about to buy a $600,000 house built in 1919. Yeah, but man, some of those are cool. I love some of those older homes. But I hope you see how much lower the taxes are here. I think if you were to put a pencil to the $600,000 house and what your payment is and what it is out here, you'll be very surprised because our taxes run about 1.5 to 1.7 versus your entire wallet in New York. And that was the best I could find. I'll bet you it was. I had terrible real estate success when I went to New York. I went out and transferred out there to work for Freihofer's Baking. Those of you may know that they're famous for their cookies. And as soon as we bought our house, it was a 1929 Stan's Colonial. And I thought, I'm going to do all this work to it. It's going to be great. And it was cute. It's on a half an acre. And then there was an election. Cuomo was voted out. So before he left office, he laid everybody off. Great. I just left a bad market in California. I get out here. He starts his own recession. It took a while to recover. So then I get transferred to Rochester. I'm in Rochester, New York. I paid $164 for a house. Now keep in mind, I was getting corporate moves, so they would pay for my move and stuff. Rochester, what's Rochester famous for? Kodak film. Beautiful people out there. Just great. What happened when I lived out there? So that was 1995, 96. Digital cameras came up. Kodak did not make the move to digital. They just thought it was an anomaly, a temporary thing. And guess what? Reality hit. Kodak starts laying off all kinds of people. I was the Ebola virus for housing. I think it was terrible. But again, I didn't see the numbers. I couldn't see if inventory was higher than it used to be or lower. And you get to do that now. I've been thinking about buying a lot of land out here by Tempe, Scottsdale, Chandler, Gilbert. Do they allow us to build container-style homes or prefab barn-style houses? That all depends on local zoning. That's out of my wheelhouse. I don't know. I know that the value of land is like 34 to 36% of the average homes that are built in the area. So if the average homes are 900,000, then the lot goes for like 300,000. So that was at your Ecolab joke, huh? Oh, Ebola. Oh, yeah. Okay. What's Ecolab? Yeah. I was told in New York once that I was the Ebola virus of computers. My computer would not do what it was supposed to do. The IT guy sat down right next to me, typed in the exact same thing, and the program he designed worked. He got up. I sat down. I said, watch, we're going to do this one at a time. Wouldn't work. He said, you emit things. Get out of my office. So love the people in New York, though. I need to get out there soon and visit. I got a couple of really great friends out there from that work experience. I don't know zoning what they're going to allow you to build. And I think by the time you figure it out, if you're not on top of the planning commission meetings, they're probably going to change it again. Land is expensive, though. I mean, everything's expensive. The building shortages that we're seeing right now are the builders want to build more homes, but they just can't because they can't get the materials. So the news that you saw yesterday or the day before that said that we had a 9% pullback in new housing starts is not really news. It's kind of a well, duh. If you can't get the Lego set, you're not going to build the castle. So, it's interesting. So I like your channel a lot. I wish we would have found it a while back. I just moved here in Tempe a month ago. I really want to buy my first house, but not my dream house yet. Take it in baby steps. Go up and go up. My first one was a 598 square foot condo. I counted the deck and called it 600 square feet. I try and dream about paying asking price for a home, but then I wake up. Yeah, Brandon, it's not happening. That's the reality. It's not 60%. What did we look at this morning? 67% of homes are going over asking price. Let's see. Let me check real quick here. Make sure I've got an accurate number. I have closed over list price, and I want to remove Yavapai County. I don't need that. So in total, put this back up. In total, we're at 58.7% of homes going over list. But then you get down to these price ranges. Look at this. Between 300,000 and 400,000, 65.9% are over list. And then you go, well, how much? You get down here, 300,000 to 400,000, 15 grand. That's the average. So that means there's 25 easily. So, let's see. You already got that one. I want to own a few multifamilies if possible. Check out One Rental at a Time on YouTube and look at he's got a course and he shows people how to amass one rental at a time. Micheal Zuber, he's a fantastic resource. I include him in the link in the body of my video here. Cash flow, TRI. Mickey, can you explain that a second? I probably should understand it, but why is it rising so aggressively, though? Is there good programs for first-time buyers like myself? It's rising aggressively because there's nothing for sale. Let me go back to the candy store analogy. I read this last week. You own a little store and you put out 5 candy bars, and 60 people come in and they instantly buy these 5 candy bars. And you think, man, everybody wants these candy bars. There's just an aggressive market for the candy bars. No, the problem was you only ordered 5. So he orders 5 more and he marks the price up 50%. And 30 people come in and they buy all the candy bars. So he gets 5 more and he marks them up 50%. The problem is on the supply side. He didn't have enough candy bars. The problem we're having is demand is not that aggressive. Demand is just about normal. But if you look at, so here's demand, yellow is normal. And here's the Cromford Market Index. Green means that it's an advantage for the sellers. And the supply is way down here. It should be normal. If these two were both in the yellow, there wouldn't be any bidding wars. And so if you look at a certain price point, like this morning, we looked and said, okay, we have let me just look it up. Let's take a list price between 300,000 and 400,000. And how many homes is that? That's 873 homes. If half of my subscribers went out and bought a home today, we'd be out of homes in that price range. I have 1,500 and some odd subscribers. We'd be done. There'd be nothing left in that price range. At one point in zip code 85012, there were 0 listings. So you just have the same amount of people that are buying that would normally go out and look at 18 to 20,000 homes are only seeing 4,000. That's the problem. And here's the kicker. It's a national problem. It's not just here. There was pent up demand for housing. People thought millennials weren't going to buy. You guys were all going to ride bikes, and you were going to live in the city, and you didn't want a dog, and you didn't want kids, and you were just going to stay in the city. Well, that thinking was wrong. And so builders didn't build for 10 years. They didn't build because they didn't think they were going to have anybody to buy it. And when they did build, they built luxury because that's where the money was. So, we kind of got ourselves backed into this corner. Sellers, though, it's really easy to sell right now. You can practically just stand on your front porch and say for sale. But you have to remember that it's not finding a buyer. When you're interviewing real estate agents, don't ask the question, how much can you get for my house? Because the market will tell you how much you're going to get. So if you mark 500,000 for it, they're probably going to come in and offer you 575, maybe 550, maybe higher, depending on the house. So don't spend a lot of time trying to determine how much your house should be priced at. Now, every time I go on a listing appointment, I have to make sure I look at Zillow because that's what everybody looks at. So I have to look at Zillow and go, well, I know Zillow says you're 515. But they didn't know you remodeled your kitchen. This kitchen's fabulous. So let's start with a higher price. But now you can just, whatever price you set, you're going to have several offers that are going to raise that price unless you start way too high. Now there's homebids.com right now that aggressively puts prices really low to get as many eyeballs on the house as they can. And then it's an online bidding process. And I looked up some of the numbers this morning. This one house, they marked it at 275 grand. They got it sold it for 425. So that's because they had a lot of people looking at one place. Now, 275. And so the bidding process began. If you're selling, what you need from a realtor is keep you out of trouble. I like to say that we don't really sell anything. We just manage you through the minefield of regulations. You should see how many forms have to be filled out, how many regulations there are just in the simple transfer of properties, how many little things that can go wrong. For example, this past weekend, we had a home that was supposed to close on Friday, and they said, well, the people it was a contingency. So the people from San Diego that were buying the Texas home, they didn't get their funding yet. It was delayed. So we said, okay, we'll close on Monday. Fortunately, the seller didn't have to move out that day. They're going to lease it back for a couple of weeks. So gave us some breathing room. But then lo and behold, Monday, the title company was just kind of saying, we found out at the end of the day, well, they were short when they wired the money, didn't have enough money. Well, they never wired the money. The person on the other end didn't tell the truth. They said they wired it. They didn't. And so the next day, Tuesday morning, I'm like, where are we with this? I mean, I'm shooting emails to everybody. I got to know exactly where we're at. Where's the problem? Where's the kink in the hose? How much money are we talking? Is $65. I said, there's got to be that much in the tip jar in the break room. Come on. Things like that pop up all the time. Inspections. You own a house. They come in and they inspect it, and you've got a whole list of things wrong. That's where the negotiation point comes. You got to look at it and go, okay, I'm willing to fix this. I'm not willing to fix that. Sellers right now aren't fixing a lot of things. But a roof is kind of I'm not going to take on a bad roof. But I like to, if I'm listing a house and somebody comes in and they say, hey, the roof needs some work, I say, offer them a credit. Give them a credit at close of escrow. They can hire their own roofer. You don't have to hassle with trying to schedule a roofer. Get it done before you close. Just give them a decent amount of money back at closing. Because you know what? You're going to have to fix the roof anyway if you relist the house. So notice how all of a sudden the price of the home from the original listing meeting no longer matters, because there's other things that happen along the journey of buying and selling a home. So you have to have an agent that doesn't just concentrate on, I can get you the best price. No, they've got to get you through some problems. They have to have bumped into some experience that says, oh, I've seen this before. Or, oh, let me ask. If you get a new agent, it doesn't mean they're a bad agent. They may be on a team with a great agent. I was with a brokerage, and I sat down at a listing appointment, and the guy says, "So how long you been selling homes, Rick?" And I said, "Well, less than a year." And he just looked at his shoes. And so I knew I wasn't going to get the listing. And I said, "Well, wait, let me get the top agent in this area. Have you heard of Bobby Lieb? He's with HomeSmart. Great guy." And I said, "Let me see if Bobby will come in, and we'll have him list the house." I said, "He's with my brokerage." So I called him. He's on a treadmill. He's working out. He answered his phone. And I said, "Bobby, would you like to go in on a listing with me?" And he says, "Absolutely. What time?" And I said, "Well, can we meet him tomorrow?" He goes, "I'll be there." And so he helped me, the new guy, facilitate that listing. So sometimes the brand new agents have a lot of help supporting them along the journey. Rents are going nuts. There is some writing out there right now, though, that is indicating that they think there may be some overbuilding in the rental market. But I don't know. I don't see it in the rental stats that we get. I didn't pull it up this morning in my email. But I just drive down Mill Avenue and Apache up by ASU. Have you been there? They're luxury apartments. So, and I didn't know college kids could afford luxury apartments. So maybe somebody else is going to move there, but just one block after another, new developments. You go down to Gilbert, they're everywhere. Cooper, Gilbert Road, down South Gilbert. And then you come up in Central Phoenix now where I live, and it's unbelievable. Go down 7th Avenue, 7th Street, all of these new apartments, and they're filling up. So, they may not be able to afford to buy anything right now, but they still need a place to move, and people are coming here. So affordability is going to be the big question of Phoenix. But, at what point did San Diego become unaffordable? So, and I showed that map the other day, how money moves. And it's interesting to see where people are coming from and where they're going. With the demand situation, then, is it better to buy a home or build a new home? Sorry for all the questions. No, that's why we're here. Ask as many questions you want. If I'm looking at resale value, I like existing homes. That's just me personally. Now, I bought a spec home before. I like existing homes because you already know what the neighborhood's going to look like. Whereas in a new build, you're next to a dirt lot. If the economy is going really well, the place will build out really fast. If all of a sudden it starts to slow down, the builder has a closeout sale. Now you're upside down already. In a new home, you go in, you got to buy the upgrades, you got to get the drapes. The advantage of new homes is you get a lot of cool stuff. You get the latest floor plans. They're much more energy efficient than most of the homes in Phoenix right now. Some of the ways that they insulate these homes and the high efficient air conditioning units that they have, that's a real advantage for new homes. But it takes 6 to 8 months to get into one now. And they're putting some of the things in the contracts that are really, I think, kind of stand in the way of letting you own a home. They reserve the right to raise the price later if they want to. Some places are doing that, or they're calling you at the last minute and offering to give you your earnest money so they can jack the price up another $15,000 to sell it to somebody else. So there's a lot of stuff you have to watch out for in new home construction. Also, right now, they're not letting inspectors on to new home sites to inspect. Let's say they get it framed. You want to send your inspector in? They're not doing it. And if they are doing it, they're requiring them to show proof of a lot of insurance. They just don't want people walking around in these homes when they're being built. It used to be you could send your inspector out and go, okay, make sure it's framed right. And then they go out when it's finished, make sure this is all done right. And now they're not letting them do it. So it's a whole different ball game. There's just as much demand in the new housing market as there is in the rest of the market. Would you consider buying older homes? I love older homes. I love the historic Phoenix district in Phoenix, Coronado, Encanto. I got to have a listing down there once and just kind of hang out. That was great. Beautiful home. I was in a Ralph Haver home not too far from where I live. And if you've ever seen that kind of architecture, I remember calling my wife at the time and saying, "You have got to come down to this house." It was only 1,400 square feet, but it was the most beautiful home I'd ever seen. And it was built in the 60s, but it was completely redone. If you're mechanically minded, old homes can be fun. I had a 1929 Stance Colonial in New York, and I enjoyed it because I got it had a basement, and I turned part of the basement into a dark room for doing photography. And it's funny, my son was mentioning the other day, he remembers that. And I thought he was too young to remember that. He goes, "Oh, yeah, you had all this black tarp up, and you kept telling me, don't open it." Red lights everywhere because that's what you had to have. But the old homes have character. Some people don't like them because they have galley kitchens. It's not open concept. But if you ever get the chance, they canceled them this year, but the historic district in Phoenix has tours on the weekends. I think twice a year. So kind of keep your ear to the ground on that because it's really worth it. There's some fabulous homes. And if you go up Central Avenue between Bethany Home and Northern, and just look at those along the bridle path, there's some amazing mini mansions up there. Tree-lined streets kind of remind you of being in Ohio. And when you say, and your follow-up question was how old? Well, it depends on the condition. You can get a whole home that's built in 1919 and somebody has gone in and replaced all the wiring and the plumbing. Knock yourself out. It's probably a good solid home. These things they're built quite well back then. I just love the character. They've replaced the windows because some of the older homes, you don't want those windows. Your AC bill is going to be $900 a month. So you got to be careful, but they're fun. A lot of character. I love them. So I was going to check if we look between 400,000 and 600,000, we have 1,121 homes. So it gets a little bit better. Going in on the Cromford report, when I looked at what homes were, what the asking price was and what they sold for, in one neighborhood, it said that the average over list for homes of 800,000 was $70,000. So then I did some digging. I thought, wow, that seems like a lot. So I went in and looked, and there were 6 homes that sold. 4 of them sold for exactly their list price. One sold 10,000 over, 15,000 over, and one sold for 100,000 over. So when you look at an average, you still have to take the time to go in and go, what happened last month? And you got to go in and you got to look at it, because trying to figure out what to offer somebody is really a difficult situation. I tell people, just figure out your budget and stick to your budget and go. And if you find yourself in a bidding situation that's outside your budget, then then don't play. If you're selling, everybody wants the top dollar, but you've really got to look at the terms, and you really got to make sure that their financing is solid. You're going to be looking at cash offers. Cash offers are great. You can close in 2 weeks on a cash offer. You have to look at their inspection period. Sometimes you're going to get a cash offer from somebody and you're going to love the price and you're going to accept it. And then during the inspection period, he saw something better he liked. So he went and put an offer on that one, and he can cancel yours because he signed up for a 5-day inspection period. So now you're back to square one, but you can go and you can look at your backup. So you got to make sure the agent says, is calling the other people that wrote an offer and saying, you got beat out by a cash buyer, but would you like to be in first position for a backup offer? Make sure he saves those offers so that he can come back to you and say, hey, guess what? It's available. My cash guy bailed. Because a lot of that going on, and it's really not fair. If they're putting cash offers on multiple offers, they're supposed to fill out a form that says this is one of multiple offers. But when they're putting cash on it and then they're going and finding another home during the inspection period, there isn't a form for that. Vacant land is going up. Get a lot while you're young. Yeah, it's. I asked my dad once. I was working out in the woods, kind of out in your neck of the woods there, Terry, tearing up a railroad track. I'll have to put that picture up here when I get it. I was on a forklift when I was 19 years old, and I ended up making a lot of money in 1975 dollars. And so I went with my dad. My dad was a barber, but then he sold real estate before he went full-time real estate, owned the Coldwell Banker franchise up there. I said, okay, Dad, here's my money. Should I buy some land? And you know what he told me? He goes, nope, take a trip. He goes, you're not married. You got money in the bank and you don't have bills. Travel. Because he said, trust me when I tell you, you will never see this opportunity again. And he was right. I didn't spend all of it, but I didn't buy any land. And I probably should have, but I didn't stick around there anyway. As soon as I got done with that job, I left that city and went to Denver. So I spent the money in Denver. I turned 21 in Denver. I deserved it. So my dad owned a logging company out of Port Angeles. Wow, I did not. That's cool. Yeah, there's a lot of friends, a lot of logging companies out there. I'm going up to Seattle in August for a wedding, and then I'm probably going to spend a few weeks up in the Port Angeles Forks area, just enjoying getting out of the heat here. So my morning updates might lag a little bit. There's not a lot of internet up there. I get lost. So who has tried to purchase a home now and got bid out, or who has tried to list their home here and didn't have it go like you thought it would go? Is there anybody out there? I just want to lay that question out there, because there's some real surprises when you're listing a home. I listed one for sale by owner in Chandler, and she was really stuck on price, and sweet lady, but she binge watched my YouTube videos. Clevenger, yes, I know that. I'll be darned. She binge watched all my YouTube videos but when we got through the sale, the underlayment on the roof was kind of having some problems, and we had to do some real negotiating to get the whole thing to stick together. And she told me, she goes, I'm so glad I listed it. I wouldn't have known how to deal with this, and I would have walked away from the deal. I would have just walked away, which would have been a bad move because they wanted to get closer. They have property up in Flagstaff, so they wanted to sell their Chandler home and get closer up by surprise. And I'll be darned if they didn't buy a home that almost looked exactly like the one that they sold, but they just wanted to be closer when they do their jaunts up to Flagstaff for the summer. So, she was glad she had an agent when she sold. When somebody comes and you're a for sale by owner and they offer you a contract, you may have a title company that can help you, or they may have a title company, and everything can go smoothly and it's great. You saved a lot of money, but if you make a mistake, it can be insanely costly. And quite honestly, think about it. For sale by owner, where are you going to advertise? Are you going to be on the MLS? There are some services that will put you on the MLS for like $3.99. But you're still going to have to offer a commission for a buyer's agent, which is probably about 2.5%. So if you go ahead and list a home and you just go ahead and make it 5%, chances are you're going to make just as much money as what you did for sale by owner paying 2.5%, because you're going to get more exposure. Your home is going to have more eyeballs on it. I've seen that over and over again. The average for sale by owner gives up after 17 days because you don't even know who's walking through your house. You don't know if they're pre-qualified because they're not with an agent. People walk through. Here's what I've seen. I've seen it on open houses I've done. Some people come walking through the house. Oh, this is really nice. And they're going around and they're unlocking a bunch of windows so they can come back later that night. Take all your stuff out. I had a guy in Phoenix once come walking in. He goes, yeah, I'm supposed to meet my buddy here in a couple of minutes. You mind if I look around? I go, no, go ahead. I immediately went out and snapped a picture of his license plate. Sure as hell. I go back there. He'd unlocked 3 windows. This was a furniture that had a home that had model furniture in it. So I knew he was planning to come back. But then I had a guy on a bicycle in an open house show up on a bike, and he was an adult. And he said, mind take a quick look around? And I said, well, I'm closing up, so go ahead. So I'm walking out to my car to put my laptop in the car, and he comes out of the bedroom, and I just didn't have a good gut feel. And he goes, oh, this is a next gen home? I go, yeah, it is. Thanks for coming in. He left. he had gone in the medicine cabinet and stole some of their meds. Turns out they do it on bicycles because if you do catch them, you don't have a license plate to write down. So there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on out there, folks. So that's why I don't like doing open houses that are occupied. I'll do them if they're vacant, but I won't do them if they're occupied anymore because I just don't like following people from room to room, and it's a lot of risk there. So, hey, I'm going to let everybody go on and get on with their night. I appreciate everybody coming on. Hope you learned a couple ditties. And I'm going to be on with Pat tomorrow at 3 o'clock. We're going to continue our talk on lending and interest rates and the forbearance plans. He sent me some information today on that, and that's tomorrow at 3 o'clock. But everybody have a fabulous and rewarding Thursday night. See you soon.